You woke up this morning and made a choice. Maybe it was coffee first. Maybe something grabbed from the fridge. Maybe you skipped breakfast entirely and told yourself you'd eat later. Either way, within an hour of waking, you probably consumed something that your ancestors from 50,000 years ago would not recognize as food. Not because it tasted strange, because it didn't exist. Here's the question nobody really asks. What did you eat before supermarkets? Before agriculture? Before fire was something you could reliably make whenever you wanted it? The answer is stranger than you'd expect, and it rewrites almost everything you think you know about the human diet. Hold that thought, because there's one moment from ancient human life we'll return to at the end. A moment that explains something you still do today, almost every single day, without knowing why. Picture a morning roughly 50,000 years ago. You live somewhere in East Africa. The sun has been up for about an hour. You are hungry. Not the mild, irritating hunger you feel when you skip a snack. Real hunger. The kind that sharpens everything. Your first task isn't breakfast. It's information. You need to know what's available. That means moving. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham at Harvard spent decades studying the relationship between early humans and food. His conclusion was radical. He argued that the thing that made humans human wasn't language, wasn't tools, wasn't social structure. It was cooking. Specifically, it was the control of fire and what happened to caloric density when food was heated. Raw meat is hard to digest. Raw tubers are nearly impossible to break down efficiently. But cook them, and your gut extracts dramatically more energy from the same amount of food. Wrangham called this the cooking hypothesis. And if he's right, it means your brain, the most expensive organ in your body, got its fuel from fire. But that's getting ahead of things. Because fire wasn't always available. And before fire was reliable, the day began very differently. You start walking, not leisurely, with purpose. The group moves together, maybe 12 to 30 people, scanning everything. Plants along the edge of a dry riverbed. Insect activity near a rotting log. The behavior of birds overhead, because birds know where the fruit is. Your eyes are doing something extraordinary right now. Primatologist Amanda Henry at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology studied dental calculus, the hardened plaque on ancient human teeth, and found something remarkable inside it. Plant starch granules, dozens of species, embedded in the teeth of humans who lived before agriculture, before farming, before any of this was supposed to exist. Early humans weren't just meat eaters. They were extraordinarily sophisticated foragers. They knew which plants were safe, which were seasonal, which were toxic, and which were nutritious. They carried a mental map of the landscape that took years, maybe decades, to build. A child growing up in that world wasn't in school. They were memorizing the land. So your morning, 50,000 years ago, might begin with something like this. A wild tuber dug from the ground with a sharpened stick. The inside is starchy and dense. It tastes nothing like a potato from a grocery store, but your body knows exactly what to do with it. Then, a few minutes later, something sweet. Wild berries. Small, slightly bitter, nothing like the engineered sweetness of modern fruit, but intensely satisfying in a way that modern fruit rarely is. Because your brain wasn't designed for abundance. It was designed for scarcity. Every sweet thing your ancestors found was a caloric windfall. Your dopamine system was built to reward that discovery. That reward still fires inside you today. Every time you reach for something sweet, your ancient brain is still celebrating a find it thinks is rare. Now here's where the story gets complicated. Meat. The popular image of prehistoric humans is hunters. Spears raised, tracking large animals across open plains. And yes, that happened. But it wasn't the whole picture. Archaeologist Brianna Pobiner at the Smithsonian's Human Origins Program studied cut marks on ancient animal bones and found something that changed the conversation. Early humans were frequently not the hunters. They were the scavengers. They arrived after a predator had already made a kill, and they were extraordinarily good at it. They used their intelligence where their speed failed, reading vulture behavior from a distance, following flies, tracking the sound of predators feeding, getting to the carcass, grabbing what they could, and leaving before something bigger noticed them. This is dangerous, extremely dangerous, but it was also efficient. A scavenged kill provides enormous calories in a short time. Bone marrow especially. Crack the femur of a large animal, and inside is a fat-dense, calorie-rich substance that requires almost no preparation. Your ancestors didn't need a recipe. They needed a rock and a fast exit. So your ancient day might look like this. Morning, plant foraging, tubers, berries, whatever the landscape offers. Midday, opportunistic. A bird's nest with eggs. Insects from beneath bark. Larvae, which are extremely high in protein and fat. This sounds unpleasant by modern standards. But your body has no such prejudice. Nutritionally, a handful of beetle larvae outperforms almost anything you could buy at a pharmacy. Then sometimes, not every day, not even every week, something larger. A medium-sized animal caught in a shallow water crossing. A carcass discovered before the competition arrived. Organs first. Liver, kidneys, heart. These are calorie-dense and highly nutritious, and they deteriorate fastest. Evolution taught you to want them first. Then the muscles. Then, with the right tools, the marrow. Nothing wasted. There is something else worth knowing about ancient eating. It was not scheduled. You did not eat at 7, at 12, at 6. You ate when food was available. Some days that meant eating until your stomach physically couldn't hold more. Some days it meant nothing at all. Your body was built for that fluctuation. The modern concept of 3 meals a day wasn't designed by evolution. It was designed by employers. Industrial-era factory owners in the 18th and 19th centuries needed workers on predictable schedules. Mealtimes became synchronized to labor, not to hunger. Before that, eating times varied wildly depending on culture, season, and availability. And before civilization entirely, you ate when your body told you to, and your body had a very sophisticated system for managing the gaps. That system still runs inside you. It's why intermittent fasting affects metabolism the way it does. Your body doesn't experience skipped meals as failure. It experiences them as normal. It's the 3-meal expectation that's the anomaly. Now, back to fire. Because fire changed everything about the ancient diet. Before reliable fire, eating was partly a matter of endurance. Raw animal protein is edible, but digestion is slow and energetically costly. Raw plant material requires extensive chewing, sometimes hours, to break down enough to extract meaningful nutrition. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, spend 5 to 6 hours a day chewing. You spend about 1. That difference is fire. Cooking pre-digests food before it enters your body. Your gut gets more energy with less effort. And the energy your gut saves gets redirected, partly to your brain. Wrangham's hypothesis suggests that brain growth in the human lineage accelerated when cooking became regular. Not because fire made you smarter directly, but because cooked food freed up enough energy for a larger brain to exist. Your intelligence, in the deepest sense, may be a side effect of someone, somewhere, learning to keep a flame alive through the night. Think about what that means. Every time you put something in the oven, you're using a technology that may be responsible for your capacity to think about using it. There's one more thing the ancient diet included that almost never gets mentioned. Uncertainty. You never knew what tomorrow would bring. A landscape abundant today could be stripped by a competing group or a seasonal shift within days. That uncertainty drove behavior. It explains why humans overeat when food is available. It explains why sweet and fat still trigger pleasure responses far beyond their actual caloric need. It explains why variety was essential. No single food source could be relied upon, so your palate evolved to want new things. Novelty in food is not a modern preference. It's an ancient survival strategy. The day winds down. If fire is available, the group gathers. This is where cooked food changes not just nutrition, but society. Sharing a cooked meal is something almost uniquely human. It created obligations. You contributed to the fire, you ate from it. You shared the hunt, you shared the result. Anthropologists believe the cooking fire is one of the earliest sites of what we'd recognize as social bonding. Not just eating together, talking, processing the day. And this is where we return to what I asked you to remember at the beginning. That thing you still do today, almost every single day, without realizing it comes from 50,000 years ago. You gather around a table, or a screen, or a takeout container balanced on a couch, and you eat near other people. Even when you're technically alone, you put something on in the background. A voice, a show. Because eating in silence, in isolation, feels wrong to your ancient brain. It was wrong. It meant you were separated from your group. And a human separated from their group, 50,000 years ago, did not survive long. Your need to eat with company, or at least the sound of it, isn't a preference. It's a memory, older than language. older than fire, built into the part of you that still, quietly, expects the world to be as dangerous and as generous as it once was.